Hello, this is Luis Almeida, the teacher of and student of Spinoza and Gurdjieff ideas. Today's topic is about God, Spinoza's God. You probably heard that Einstein loved Spinoza's philosophy, and he proclaimed, "My God is the God of Spinoza." But what is Spinoza's God, and how is he different from the Hebrew God and the Christian God? I would say that Spinoza's God is non-traditional. Spinoza's God is not a personal God. A Spinoza God is a being with infinite attributes, and each attribute expresses this being's nature. And we are part of two: the attribute of thought, which expresses the thinking mind and the mind that desires to understand. And there is the attribute called extension. Extension has to do with the whole universe of matter, motion, and rest, the physical universe. So the attribute of thought expresses our thinking, and the attribute of extension expresses our body. The poem that I want to express was created by my teacher, I would say over 70 years ago. Dr. Kettner had a Spinoza group during the 30s and 40s, 1930s and 40s and 50s, and my teacher was a student of his. The book called Back to the Nameless One can be purchased on my website. Just go to resource. What a title, Back to the Nameless One. Again, for you who have a difficulty with the word God, that's okay. But endeavor to follow me and see what you think. Because Spinoza's God, again, is different. And it's going to be expressed in this poem, page 12. Wait with rejoicing. Why is it that men quarrel and hate each other, that confusion is theirs? What kind of world is this? They come together without understanding or knowledge of bliss. Freedom men crave, but slaves they become. Who arranges this? As thou mayest always. Wait for the answer till thy soul is awakened. But wait for it. Wait within. Wait within is the answer. From thy soul it will come, today or tomorrow. Unaware as an angel, with rejoicing await it. The answer will come. Oh, await with rejoicing. I would take this poem, and many times when I was a student of my teacher for over 20 years, and it was very difficult for me. I was a slow learner. I had a beauty salon, and I was fortunate to find a trade that I was good at and successful in. But there were times when I was overwhelmed with problems, and I'm highly emotional, so I'm quick to anger and get frustrated, so I lash out. But I cannot do that in a salon. And I had this frustration. I would go into the bathroom and sit down and indifferent to just calm myself down and read a poem, and it would change me. I hope this affects you. Again, the poem Wait with Rejoicing. And at the beginning, let's take a look at this. Why is it that men quarrel and hate each other? Well, in our home, you fight with your siblings. You have this love-hate relationship. If your sibling has a toy that you want, you grab it, and a fight begins, quarreling. Or you might have a partner. You do something that the other did not approve and did not like, and now you have a quarrel. You make promises, or your friend makes a promise and they don't keep. There's quarreling. You quarrel, you argue, you fight. Today we have individual countries fighting each other. Pakistan, Israel, Pakistan. That is a definition of hate and quarreling at an extreme level. But it basically begins at the home. So what is Spinoza's God? Again, Spinoza's God is a being that is not a personal God. expresses laws. And there are several laws that expresses this being's nature that directs all of us. The main two are the law of self-preservation. Everybody is endeavoring to preserve themselves any way possible, depending on the knowledge that they have. So if you grew up in an environment that is quick to anger, solve problems when attack people or argue, and there's there's a lot of arguing and fighting in the home, then that's what you will do in your life. How do you express yourself, express your problems? If you grew up in an environment that they talked and they communicated and they did not argue, but they endeavored to see the value in conversation, and they taught you and they had a lot of love in the environment, you will in turn communicate that way. I communicated in an environment that was a lot of arguing and fighting and quarreling, and there's a lot of expression of hate and anger. However, the work changed my life. This work changed my life. Yes, I still have that to a degree, but it's not overwhelming. What I've come to is what my teacher and from Spinoza and Gurdjieff, I learned how to awaken another part of the mind. An awakened state is a state where there is a higher level of intelligence. It's called intuitive intelligence. This intuitive intelligence lives in the moment, lives as an awakened state. Gurdjieff talks about being awake. That is the awakened state. The awakened state loves to understand. Its effort is to understand our nature, your nature. How to understand this poem. Let's take a look at this again. Why is it that men quarrel and hate each other? That confusion is theirs. Because we don't understand the value of communication, or we don't understand our emotions. Because if you begin to understand your emotions, the hate, the pain, the anger, you'll begin to have more power and not act out on that anger or that hate. However, you must learn how to look at oneself. And that's why journaling is so important. If you decide to work with me, if you decide former students to come back to work with me, you know how difficult it is to stay on the course of self-improvement and to improve your understanding. So a journal, you write the events that trigger your emotions. Your emotions are so important to learn about oneself. You heard of Socrates. Socrates proclaimed, to know thyself is the highest level of knowledge, the highest level of knowledge. What is there to know? To know thyself. Why do we quarrel? Why do we hate? What is anger? And so on. Because as this poem says, what kind of world is this? They come together without understanding or knowledge of bliss. Without understanding, we fight. When we begin to know ourselves, there's another state. It's called a blissful state. We learn how to love oneself, ourselves. You learn how to love yourself. What is there to love? The understanding. When you begin to know your emotions, understand your emotions, you're no longer a victim of them. And what replaces this a quarreling anger state? Love of understanding. Your mind is actively alive. You are thinking, you are expressing a higher level of intelligence. It's called the intuitive intelligence. Some of you have been to therapy, psychotherapy. It's important. You get into issues that disturb you, and some of you have been going to therapy for many, many years and have paid thousands and thousands of dollars. But nothing has really changed that much. You might feel better. Some of you may have changed, yes. You might have better, your lives might be a little bit better. But the change that I'm talking about is not on a superficial level. Therapy is only concerned with one part of your nature, the ego nature. See, we are more than ego. We all need an ego to survive. The ego is our first birth. The ego expresses all our desires, all our emotions, and it expresses our five instincts: desire of taste, sight, sound, hearing, and touch and smell. These emotions, these senses are important for survival. We need to learn how to survive and exist in life. And that's where the ego is so important. So our first birth is we learn how to live and survive, exist and survive. We're not really living, but we're surviving. But that's the first step. That's so important. When your intuitive intelligence is awakened, that's a whole different level. That's where blissful state will come in. Through the journaling process, again, write in your journal what affects you, how you are affected. You write the event, and you write down your feelings and your emotions. So important. You can get on, say, there's a book I have on my website. Of course, you might say, well, I'm selling a book. Of course. What the heck? How are you going to learn? Many of you have a Bible, or you might have if you're a Buddhist, you'll find material. You'll buy things. You go to the temple or wherever, and you might contribute something. You must contribute something for your own personal growth. But this book, one of the book of several that I have, the other book is called The Way of Spinoza and Gurdjieff. That book is a case study of many of my students who have learned how to look at themselves and how to go understand the journaling process. Now, so if you are in a state of quarreling all the time, you are in your ego state. Again, the ego is important, but we are more than ego. There's another state called, again, the intuitive intelligence. To understand this poem, you must access this intelligence. You may at times have tasted. It comes with intuition. You have a new insight. You come to a new state. You don't understand this new state, but it's different from the ego state. And that's what I'm talking about. When I had met my teacher, I was a successful salon owner. I had a salon. I was married. I had money. I had a new car. I had everything everybody wants. But I was unhappy. Why? Because I was in my ego state. There was something more in my life called the intuitive intelligence. And now I'm able to access this. And I want you to learn about it because it's in you, it's in everybody. But unfortunate reality, though, the problem is we are so attached to the ego's desires. And what are the ego's desires? Money, fame, a family, education, pride, and ego, and many other desires. Identity. We have our identity in these things, and they take us, and we don't have room for anything else. I had all those things, and I was unhappy. I'm looking for the individual, you, there, who wants something. You might be dissatisfied with your life. You should be. You've got to be functioning in life. You must be part of life to do this work. Gurdjieff says something very important. He says, the individual who is not operating or functioning in life, cannot function in life, cannot do the work. You must do the work. You cannot be homeless or not working. You cannot be a couch potato and just do this. Why? Because the personality ego state is the material for your growth, for your spiritual growth. Because the ego gets us in trouble. Look at what's happening in the world. Ukraine and Russia, now Israel and Pakistan. What horrendous horror is happening? It all begins with the ego wanting power over another group, wanting possessions, and they're identified with their religion, their nation, and their beliefs. and they want to control people. This work goes above all that. And that's why this is so important. Why is it that men quarrel and hate each other? The confusion is theirs. They come together without understanding, knowledge, or bliss. Freedom men crave, but slaves they become. We become slaves to our what we identify with. We could become slaves with our position, our beliefs, our attitudes. That's what we had during the Crusades. Christians wanted to destroy the Muslims. And why religions fight each other. And yet they all talk about God. Why is it that they become slaves of and not understand? Because, in the in the Bible and in the Islam, the Torah and other books, good things are in those books. Good things are in those books. But yet, when an ego mind takes over the book, it's no longer a precious, godly book. It becomes expression of the ego. So we must see these books from another position, from the position of our intuitive intelligence. It says this, they come together without understanding or knowledge of bliss. So is it possible to come to a joyful, blissful state through our power of understanding? Who arranges this? Well, there's nobody who arranges it. It's just you follow laws. In your family, you learn about quarreling because you do it, fighting, hating, or you might be in an environment of love. But that love is a certain superficial level. It doesn't really last. The good taste of love is when you are among other individuals and how you communicate. What is the definition of love? According to Spinoza, love is pleasure accompanied by the idea of an external cause. The opposite of love is hate. What is hate? Hate is pain accompanied by the idea of an external cause. So this love. This love is a superficial level. I love, say, Mexican food, or I love Persian food, or I love whatever. I love food, and I love to drink, and that is a certain love. Love is pleasure with something as the cause of my pleasure. So love is extended to other people. I love my partner because my partner affirms me and loves me back. So our love is dependent on others to love us back. If they don't love us in return, we go into hate automatically. We hate them. Now, so there's another level that's beyond this superficial level. The level of the love that I'm talking about is what I would say Lao Tzu talks about. Jesus, the man, speaks about. I believe Jesus was a man, a prophet. And I know he was. I know he is, because I understand Spinoza. Spinoza is ethics. Spinoza was a man of high intelligence. Now, where am I going? I just lost my thought. Okay, bear with me. It'll come back. So who arranges this? Slaves become. So we can go beyond slave to understanding. So the next question is, yes, who arranges this? There's a belief, the Christian God and the Jewish God believes that there's a man on a throne who dispenses favors or punishments. So if you follow their beliefs, you're going to be suffering. Look at what's happened to Israel. They're suffering. What's happening to Christianity? Suffering. What happened to the Muslims, Islam? Suffering. Why? Because they're living on an ego level. So what we want to go is beyond the ego to become to understanding. So wait for the answer till the soul is awakened. Now the soul is the mind of man, the higher mind, the intuitive nature. Your soul is the mind. So your soul could be asleep. It could be excuse me, the soul is the mind of man. This is what Spinoza communicates. The soul is the mind of man. The spirit of man is the soul. So it reflects the mind. So if your mind is confused, your soul is asleep, and your soul expresses anger. If your mind is awake, your soul is thinking creatively in a more appreciative and loving way. Wait for the answer. And this is where meditation is so important. Meditation is not just to silence the mind, but meditation is to access the higher mind, the true spiritual part of the mind. See, mankind is comprised of the ego state and his higher intuitive nature, intelligence. We have both. So either you live in your ego state and you die, and that's it, and you're because you're identified with your body, and when you identify with your body body dies, and you die with it. However, if your intelligence is awakened, and your intelligence not only understands the body, but has a different identity with the body becomes a tool. The mind can be connected with the source, the mind of God, and if your mind is connected with the mind of God, then you will live forever. And I'm going to read something from that. It's called a short treatise. So the idea of waiting in your meditation, wait for the answer and allow your being to silence the ego mind and listen to the awakened intuitive intelligence. So I'm going to read something about the short treatise. This is called the short treatise. You can get it online. I don't have it. It's online. It's more expensive. It's a hardcover. I think they have a soft cover. But this is something I want to read about. It's so beautiful. This was written, I think, before the Ethics. And Spinoza talks about God, or say the two parts of man. It goes like this. Since then, reason has no power to lead us to the attainment of our well-being, it remains for us to inquire whether we can attain it through the fourth and last kind of knowledge. Now, we have said that this kind of knowledge does not result from something else, but from a direct revelation of the object itself to the understanding. So Spinoza emphasizes there's an object and there's the understanding. And if that object is glorious and good, then the soul becomes necessarily united with it. Now, look at this. So there's the object, and the soul or the mind comes united with this object. So this object is glorious and good. We necessarily become united with that object. But most of our objects could be money, could be fame, could be family, could be ego, could be nationalism, could be country, could be your race or your color or your religion. Those are objects that we become identified with. And so, it's good. That's pretty good, of course. But it doesn't give you true happiness, true fulfillment. So Spinoza's talk about this object that's beyond what we are familiar with. This object is the object called God, Spinoza's God, not the traditional Christian or Hebrew God. Hence, it follows incontrovertibly, or say without question. Hence, it follows incontrovertibly that it is this knowledge which evokes love. So that when we get to know God after this manner, then as it cannot reveal itself, nor become known to us otherwise than the most glorious and best of all. See, we talk about, the food we eat. I love food. I love to eat. And we found that food, a Mexican restaurant, we enjoy it, we love it, and then it's over. We're satiated, we're full. Now, we might get indigested. So you can see that pleasure has a momentarily pleasurable state. And that's good. That's okay. We need nutrition. But we love it so much. But however, it doesn't last. Now, again, so that when we get to know God after this manner, Then, as he cannot reveal himself nor become known to us, otherwise than the most glorious and best of all, see, this God, Spinoza's God, is not the traditional Hebrew or Christian God. It's a being that is comprised of infinite attributes. And when you're connected with this being, but first, you must be connected with yourself. You can't automatically go into this being and say, oh, come to me. I want to connect with you. You must say, unravel your confused nature, because your ego stops you from seeing this truth. And you might resent me, you might react to me, and you might turn me off, and that's good. That's okay. Do that. You don't have to listen to this. Why should you? But there are some of you who are dissatisfied with the direction of your life, and you may want this. So bear with me. And only in this union, as we have already remarked, does our blessedness consist. So we can be a union connected with the objects, everyday objects, with money, with our bank accounts, with our prestige, our position. You might be a doctor, an attorney, a medical doctor, or an architect, or a great hairstylist, or whatever. You identify with that. That's pretty good. However, it doesn't last. It can be taken away from you. But if you are connected with something that is everlasting, now that's a different state. That kind of bliss does not change. It continues as you continue to grow and understand it more and more. My state of bliss is much greater than it was, say, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, and it's continued to grow. I've been doing this work for 50 years, and I'm going to continue for another 30 years, hopefully. I'm 83 years old, so you figure the math. But I'm going to add one more thing, or another thing. For this reason, there is such a close union between God and us, and it is evident that we cannot know him except directly. It's possible to be directly connected with this God. Spinoza says something about Jesus, the man. He says, Jesus communicated with God mind to mind, and that is your and my possibility, my potential. And I feel I do. All right, another part on the short treatise. I'm just going to take another part. When we become aware of these excellent effects, then we may say with truth that we have been born again. For our first birth took place when we were reunited with the body, through which the activities and movements of the vital spirits have arisen. So we're united with our body. You're aware of all your senses, how great we feel, sensual pleasures, sex, food, all riches. Oh, what's pleasures? This is great. That's our first birth, the ego state. But this is our other birth, or second birth, will take place when we become aware in us of entirely different effects of love, commiserate with the knowledge of this incorporeal thing, or incorporeal meaning it is incorporeal, meaning finite. And as different from the first as the corporeal is different from the incorporeal, spirit from flesh, spirit from flesh. Let's read that again. We become aware in us of entirely different effects of love, commiserate with the knowledge of this incorporeal object, as different from the first as the corporeal is different from the incorporeal, spirit from flesh. And this may, therefore, all the more justly and truly be called regeneration, inasmuch as only from this love and union does eternal and unchangeable existence ensue, as we shall prove. See, Spinoza's ethics and the short treatise is all about how to reconnect with our higher intelligence. And when we begin to discover it, we begin to connect with the incorporeal, or this infinite being's nature. And that is where our true happiness comes about. So the idea is to improve our understanding, how through knowledge and journaling process of knowing thyself, knowing your emotions. You must know your emotions. your pain, your hate, and your anger. And once you know them, you become free of them. All right, I hope to hear from you. If you have any questions, don't hesitate. Make a comment. And check my website. You can see it below. Also, I have Patreon, a new platform. I have over 50 videos on there. You might join for $5 a month. For God's sakes, it's only $5 a month. And you have access to over 50 videos. And I talk about all these things because you must listen to it over and over again. Because you yourself, your life is repetitive. You live from your memory. And that is no place to just remain. You must want to explore your higher intelligence, the truth of who you really are. Bye for now.